Battle Through the Heavens, Episode 191. At the end of the previous episode, Yao Lao and the others conclude that the Hun clan's lack of direct involvement is due to the ancient agreement. Despite a year of constant observation, the area where the demonic flame descended shows no signs of activity, leaving them worried about Xiaoyan and Shun-Er, reassured only by the dragon seal still on Ziyan's hand. With no solution, they shift their focus to the ongoing war against the Hun clan. Meanwhile, as the Central Plains' attention remains on the battles between the Hall of Souls and the Sky Mansion Alliance, shocking news quietly spreads. The Shi clan, one of the 8 ancient clans, has mysteriously vanished like the Ling clan before it, deepening the sense of looming mystery over the continent. The Shi clan was one of the 8 ancient clans. Although the Shu clan was not as well known as the Gu clan or the Hun clan, it was still one of the 8 ancient clans and not an ordinary existence. The Shi clan usually kept a low profile and rarely would news related to them spread. But keeping a low profile did not mean that they were weak. This Shi clan was relatively strong when gauged by their fighting strength. The Shi clan was a lot stronger than the Ling clan, which was the first to disappear. There were many powerful individuals within the clan who possessed an extremely powerful foundation. However, a super faction that possessed such a great foundation had once again mysteriously vanished overnight. Just thinking about the clan's disappearance was sufficient to cause one to feel a chill within one's heart. The Shu clan had disappeared the same way the Ling clan had. Their realms had both been shut before they disappeared. Once the realms reopened, millions of clan members and descendant citizens could not be found. Not one of them remained. Clusters of experts from various factions felt a chill rise from their feet to their hearts. These experts had entered the realm of the Shi clan and found the realm completely quiet and lifeless. Just what kind of terrifying existence could eliminate millions of individuals? Some of these millions of individuals included those top experts from the Shi clan. All of those experts were existences within the Central Plains that could shake the world with the stomp of a foot. Despite such existences, the Shi clan was still completely removed from this world. The information regarding the disappearance of the Shu clan appeared like a hurricane as it swept across the Central Plains. Every faction was startled by this shocking information. Some of those with sharp senses could vaguely tell that something was not quite right. All of these ancient factions were incomparably strong, and their inheritance had lasted for thousands of years. Yet 2 clans had completely vanished within a short 10 years. If such a matter had only occurred once, it could be written off as a fluke. If it occurred twice, it would really be strange. Moreover, the way both clans had disappeared was exactly the same. This gave one the idea that the perpetrator, who made the Ling and Shi clans vanish, should be the same person, or rather the same faction. However, a situation that caused one to feel troubled followed. Everyone knew that there were only 2 factions across the entire continent that could quietly eliminate the ancient Ling clan and the ancient Shu clan. Those 2 factions were the Hun clan and the Gu clan. In an instant, many guesses and doubts were thrown toward these 2 factions. The Hun clan did not respond to these guesses, which matched their usual style. However, the Gu clan felt a headache forming as doubts were cast their way. Their relationship with the other ancient clans had been quite good, but the relationships between them had become a little awkward after the Ling and Shi clans had disappeared. The other few clans were clearly beginning to feel some doubt and fear for the Gu clan. Even some of their regular interactions had been halted. The Gu clan clearly felt a headache because of this troubling news that had appeared out of the blue. But the events this time caused them to be cautious. These developments were clearly not beneficial to the Gu clan. The faction who had struck had likely involved the Gu clan in their scheme on purpose. However, the Gu clan upper echelons felt some doubt and uncertainty because they couldn't figure out how it was possible for the Hun clan to possess such a frightening strength if they were really the perpetrator. They had managed to avoid the probing of many of the Gu clan's experts and eliminated the Ling and Shu clans without anyone else noticing either. Alternatively, could there be another terrifying existence that they did not know about within the Central Plains? Regardless of the Gu clan's guesses, they did not possess any evidence to prove their innocence to the other 3 clans. Hence, they could only remain quiet in the face of this suspicion, as the Gu clan and Hun clan remained silent. The remaining 3 clans of the 8 ancient clans, which were the Yao clan, Lei clan, and Yan clan, suddenly announced an alliance 1 month after the Shi clan had vanished. They called themselves the Three-Clan Alliance. The establishment of the Three-Clan Alliance had an extremely great impact on other factions. This was the first time an alliance had been formed by the three ancient clans since ancient times. After all, these clans were very competitive and had experienced many conflicts. It was easier said than done to abandon everything and form an alliance. But this time around, the three clans felt a great unease because an unknown danger. They did not wish to become the next Ling clan or Shu clan. But this mysterious murderer had been able to quietly eliminate the Ling clan and the Shu clan. So it was probably not going to be an overly difficult matter for that perpetrator to eliminate one of them. In order to protect their clan's bloodline, they had no other choice but to form an alliance at this moment. The other factions on the Central Plains slightly relaxed when the Three-Clan Alliance did not launch an army into the Central Plains after announcing their alliance. Instead, they spent plenty of resources to build a tunnel between their realms. Thus, if one party was attacked, the other two would be able to swiftly provide support through the spatial tunnel. After the spatial tunnels between the three clans were formed, the three clans appeared impregnable. At this moment, these clans finally began to gradually relax, after which they also started to dispatch some experts. These experts continuously entered and exited the Shu clan's realm in an attempt to find some evidence to point to a culprit. The Central Plains was always extremely interesting, so nothing could remain in the spotlight for long. Even shocking events like the disappearance of the Shu clan and the formation of an alliance by the three clans had gradually left the spotlight around half a year later. Moreover, that mysterious perpetrator had seemed to have disappeared without a trace. It caused one to feel an uneasiness while sighing in relief after being shocked for a period of time. The Sky Mansion Alliance also regained its calm. It continued to engage in an endless struggle with the Hall of Souls. At this moment, the two big factions were completely at odds. Today, one would attack the other's city. Tomorrow, the other would destroy one's branch hall. They exchanged a tit for a tat as they engaged in endless battles. However, long-term fight had begun to benefit the Sky Mansion Alliance. They were using this war to gain more strength. Not only had this war allowed the fighting strength of the Alliance to become more powerful and unified, it had also attracted an increasing number of small factions who had been pressured by the Hun clan to join them. Hence, during this 1.5 years of war, the size of the Sky Mansion Alliance had expanded many times over when compared to before the war. The number of experts within the Alliance did not lose to the Hall of Souls. Gaining strength through war had allowed the Alliance to grow even stronger. However, there was a matter that caused Yao Lao's group fill with worry and anxiousness even as their strength soared. The source of these feelings was naturally Xiaoyan. It had been 1.5 years since the demonic flame realm had shut back then. But they still hadn't obtained the slightest news related to Xiaoyan. This lack of news had caused many people's heart to become a little anxious. The Sky Mansion Alliance's chief might be Yao Lao, but in the hearts of many people, that skinny and strong back was their mental support. They thought that as long as that skinny back was supporting them, the Sky Mansion Alliance would never fall, regardless of how anxious they felt. Reality was cruel. There had been no activity from that place even now. Time would not pause because of anyone. Hence, after the demonic flame was sealed for 2 whole years, the strands of hope in the hearts of many began to gradually dim. Yao Lao's group could do nothing to stem such a situation. They could only halt some offensive battles and turn to defense, while the Sky Mansion Alliance changed its fighting method. The demonic flame realm had finally revealed some life after being quiet for 2 years. The demonic flame realm was still as hot as ever as an enormous crystal egg floated in the sky above the magma sea region. The surface of the crystal egg was sparkling. Occasionally, there was a faint fire seedling leaping up and down, appearing just like a fairy that was filled with spirituality. Crack! A faint sound was suddenly emitted from the silence. If one's eyes glanced over, one would see that the surface of the crystal egg had slowly started to crack. After this first crack appeared, an increasing number of cracks began to gradually climb across the crystal egg. In the end, a large crystal shell fell from the top. Bang! A pink and golden light suddenly rose into the sky after the crystal egg crack. Finally, this light turned into a curtain that scattered down from the distant sky. Clamor! An arm was suddenly extended from the light pillar as a figure violently stretched its lazy waist. The bones all over its body emitted a thunder-like sound that echoed around the sky. I have finally exited my retreat. A naked figure stepped out of the light pillar. Who else could the face of the figure belong to other than Xiao Yan? However, his black hair scattered over his shoulders, giving him a free and handsome appearance. If one were to carefully observe his eyes, one would discover that they had turned into two extremely tiny fire lotuses. The lotuses rotated, and a mysterious suction force was vaguely emitted from them, as though one's soul could be dragged into them. "Ah, Xiaoyange, Jie, why are you not wearing any clothes?" A clear voice that sounded like a flowing spring in a valley, while accompanied by an embarrassment, appeared behind Xiao Yan soon after he had stepped out of the light pillar. Xiao Yan turned around and looked at the beautiful figure, whose long black hair scattered over her delicate waist like a waterfall. Perhaps it was because she had been in a slumber while training. But the current Shun-Er's exquisite, peach-like face lacked a tenderness. Instead, it had gained the hint of a soul-stirring enchantment, adding the faint embarrassment on her face. All it took was one glance, and Xiao Yan was captivated. "My wife is indeed beautiful." The naked man stepped through the empty air and scratched his head before he smiled and complimented the embarrassed lady in front of him. This retreat has probably exhausted a great amount of time. Xiao Yan lifted his head and looked all across the sky that was permeated with fire. Although this environment appeared the same as when he had undertaken his retreat, he was still able to sense a difference. Shun-Er by the side gently nodded. The purifying demonic lotus flame was not an ordinary thing. If they did not have time, even the two of them together would not have been able to refine it. "Xiaoyange, Ji is likely quite powerful now, no?" Shun-Er rolled her eyes as she wondered out loud with a smile. "It will not be difficult to defeat the chief of the Hall of Souls the next time I meet him." Xiao Yan slightly smiled. His voice relayed an extreme confidence. The benefits he had obtained from refining the purifying demonic lotus flame were incomparable. Based on his senses, his strength should have reached the initial level of the 5th star of the Dusheng class. This was a leap of 3 stars when compared to his intermediate 2-star Dusheng strength before he had taken the retreat. This great leap in strength caused even Xiao Yan to feel some disbelief earlier. Being an elite Dusheng, he was clearly aware of just how difficult it was to raise one's level within the Dusheng class. This increase of 3 stars would have required decades of training under normal circumstances. This time around, he had used the purifying demonic lotus flame to advance his strength around the entire world. The only spiritual object with the unbelievable ability to allow an elite Dusheng's strength to soar by 3 stars was likely just this 3rd-ranked heavenly flame. It is said that when a person reaches the top, all those around him will also ascend with him. This time around, thanks to Xiaoyange, Jie, my strength has also ended up increasing a bunch. Shun-Er softly laughed. During the refining process of the purifying demonic lotus flame, bits of the vast and mighty energy had also entered her body. Hence, she had also benefited. Although she had yet to break through to the 5th star of the Dusheng class, she had soared to the advanced level of the 4th star of the Dusheng class. It must be said that the gains that the both of them had attained during this retreat would cause others to be extremely envious. Xiao Yan was naturally happy that Shun-Er's strength had soared. Although his strength might have ended up increasing more if he had absorbed the purifying demonic lotus flame alone. He knew he would have died from the backlash of the demonic flame had it not been for Shun-Er's aid. How could he still be in his current state? I wonder what the current heavenly flame in my body. Xiao Yan's mind quickly returned to the most important matter. A thought immediately passed through his mind, but he was stunned to find that the heavenly flame, which had originally filled his body, had completely disappeared. This unexpected change caused Xiao Yan's expression to drop. The heavenly flame was something he relied on to survive. The disappearance of his heavenly flames would be a big blow to him. Xiao Yan Ge, what is it? Shun-Er by the side hurriedly asked after seeing the change in Xiao Yan's expression. Xiao Yan did not have the time to respond to her voice. He calmed down and carefully checked the interior of his body. Only after a long while did he suddenly detect something vaguely present deep within his body. Come out. Xiao Yan suddenly clenched his hand after sensing this thing. He let out a low cry and a pink-colored flame suddenly erupted from his palm. There seemed to be a faint golden light flowing around the edges of the flame like a metallic object. The appearance of this cluster of pink flames caused the surrounding air to distort. Then, the cluster suddenly began to wiggle. It subsequently transformed into a half-foot-tall baby in front of Xiaoyan's and Xuner's stunned eyes. Yi wa yi wa. The tiny fire baby's large eyes contained a pink flame, and they landed on Xiaoyan the moment the baby appeared, after which it extended its flabby little hand and grabbed Xiaoyan's arm. The baby continuously rubbed Xiaoyan, appearing exceptionally affectionate. Xiaoyan and Xun were completely stunned as they stared at the fire baby, which was not very large. It was only a little bigger than an arm. At a glance, it was like a flabby little round ball. A braid was present on its little head, while a small little cloth wrapped around the front of its body. Leaving its buttocks visible, there was a pink lotus fire seal imprinted on its little head. At a glance, it appeared extremely cute. At the very least, there was a glitter flashing in Jun'er's pretty eyes. It appeared as though she was being flooded with maternal love. Yi wa yi wa. The fire baby grabbed Xiaoyan's hand and swung it, while Xiaoyan and Jun'er were stunned by this unexpected situation. A tender and strange sound was emitted from the baby's mouth. What is happening? Xiaoyan finally recovered at this moment. He looked at the fire baby, who refused to release his arm, and asked in a lost voice. Jun'er merely shook her head when she heard his clueless question. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Could it be that this is the new flame in your body after merging so many heavenly flames?" If the purifying demonic lotus flame was added, Xiaoyan possessed a total of 6 types of heavenly flames within his body. No one could be certain just what kind of change would occur when 6 types of heavenly flames were merged together. After all, no one in this world had tried merging 6 types of heavenly flames as an experiment. Xiaoyan fell deep into thought upon hearing her answer. His eyes returned to the flabby fire baby on his arm as he involuntarily pinched it. The baby's soft and smooth skin caused Xiaoyan to realize that this fire baby felt like an actual baby. The feeling of the fire baby's skin was exactly the same as a human. Moreover, he sensed that he seemed to possess a strange connection with this little thing whenever he touched it. That familiar feeling was exactly the same as when he had controlled the heavenly flame within his body in the past. This thing is really the heavenly flame within my body. Xiaoyan nodded with a solemn expression at this moment. He was certain that this fire baby was the new heavenly flame formed after merging the purifying demonic lotus flame, but even he was at a loss as to why such a change would occur. I sense a familiar feeling from this little thing. It seems similar to my gold emperor incinerating heavenly flame. Jun'er softly commented at this moment. Your gold emperor incinerating heavenly flame joined the refinement of the purifying demonic lotus flame. Thus, some of the essence of the gold emperor incinerating heavenly flame has merged into my body, Xiaoyan explained. His eyes continued to remain on the fire baby on his arm. The baby had a braid on his head. The 5 types of heavenly flames within his body had completely merged with the purifying demonic lotus flame. Of course, if one wanted to be more exact, one should say that his 5 heavenly flames had merged into the purifying demonic lotus flame. Although the 5 types of heavenly flames were larger in number, this number did not pose any resistance to the purifying demonic lotus flame, so they were completely merged into the purifying demonic lotus flame. If Xiaoyan had not already activated the flame mantra and refined the demonic flame, he would likely have tasted a far worse ending while trying to gain something. Haha. Xiaoyan ge. I once heard father said that only an extremely few heavenly flames are able to take shape after being refined by a person. If I have guessed correctly, this should be the newly formed heavenly flame fire spirit within your body. Jun'er smiled as she spoke. From the looks of it, this did not appear to be something bad. Xiaoyan slightly nodded. He seemed to have recalled something, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He asked, "In that case, how will I unleash the angry Buddha lotus flame when fighting with others in the future?" He had examined his body earlier, and the heavenly flame that had come wherever he called it had completely vanished. What would he use to agglomerate a fire lotus to fight with others? Yi wa yi wa. The big eyes of the little thing that was hugging his hand and dripping saliva brightened upon hearing Xiaoyan's words. He lifted his little hand, and a fire gathered on his palm. A fire lotus was quickly formed. Angry Buddha. Lotus flame. Xiaoyan's eyes were about to pop out of his head, seeing this fire lotus form. The angry Buddha lotus flame was a skill that he had created. Other than him, no one else was able to unleash it. Yet this little thing was randomly able to create it, and at a speed that even its creator, Xiaoyan, could not match. This little thing has even secretly learned your do skill." Jun-er covered her mouth and softly laughed. "Yiwa, yiwa." Pride surfaced on the little thing's small, tender face after having sensed Xiaoyan's shock. Two small hands were clenched and then released before many two. Colored angry Buddha lotus flames formed above his palm, after which they floated around him and continued to rotate. 10 angry Buddha lotus flames. Xiaoyan inhaled a deep breath of air after seeing these lotuses. Even he had never successfully created 10 angry Buddha lotus flames together. Although these fire lotuses were only created from 2 types of heavenly flames, the strength of such a number of them would be incredible. Yi wa yu wa. However, Xiaoyan's shock did not end. After forming the 10 angry Buddha lotus flames, the little thing beckoned with his hand, and the 10 fire lotus suddenly clashed together before swiftly merging within a short instant. A fire lotus that caused both Xiaoyan's and Jun-er's expressions to change rose from the clash. Xiaoyan's heart felt as though it had violently been grabbed as he stared at the half-foot-wide pink fire lotus, which appeared delicate and beautiful. Even his breathing had become a little difficult. Extermination. Fire lotus. Xiaoyan inhaled a breath of air as he softly muttered. The fire lotus created by the fire baby was his strongest trump card, the extermination fire lotus. But the strength of this fire lotus was many times more terrifying than any type of fire lotus Xiaoyan had ever created in the past. This time around, I have really picked up a treasure, a fire baby that could unleash the extermination lotus flame. Xiaoyan naturally understood what this meant within his heart. He would no longer need someone to help delay his opponent during a fight in the future. As long as he thought about it, this little thing would be able to create the fire lotus extremely quick. This fire baby will become Xiaoyan's biggest aid. Xiaoyan and Jun-er exchanged glances. They could see some joy in the other party's eyes. Clearly, the evolution of the heavenly flame had exceeded their expectations. Yiwa yiwa. The little thing played with the extermination fire lotus that was floating around his body. After which, the baby widened his mouth and swallowed the fire lotus before once again extending his flabby little hand to hug Xiaoyan's arm. He began to rub it again. By relying on the strange feeling he felt, he appeared just like a small pet, which viewed Xiaoyan as its closest kin. Xiaoyan smiled as he observed this fire baby. His hand gently rubbed the baby's small head. The baby narrowed his eyes in comfort and continued to cry out joyously. Xiaoyan softly laughed upon witnessing this reaction. Although the heavenly flame had morphed into this mysterious form, it was fortunate that Xiaoyan was still able to control it. This little thing would immediately carry out his order as long as he gave it a thought. From a certain point of view, there was merely an additional intermediary between Xiaoyan and the heavenly flame. Moreover, this mediator was able to unleash the full might of Xiaoyan's heavenly flame. This thing seems to possess an intelligence. There will be a lot of room for development in the future. Perhaps we should give him a name. Jun-er smiled and revealed her thoughts. Yiwa yiwa. The fire baby rubbing Xiaoyan's arm quickly lifted its head, appearing as though it understood Jun-er's words. Those large eyes contained some anticipation as they stared at Xiaoyan, while his mouth emitted a tender yiwa yiwa sound. Name. Since it likes to cry out yiwa yiwa, I'll call it Little Yi. Xiaoyan spread his hands and randomly gave the baby a name, Yiwa. The fire baby immediately became dejected once he heard the name Xiaoyan randomly choose. His mouth cried out Yiwa in protest, but Xiaoyan merely laughed when he heard this objection before saying, "Little Yi, quickly go back. We are about to leave this place." Little Yi could only dejectedly lay against Xiaoyan's hand after hearing that this matter had been settled by Xiaoyan. After which, his body turned into a cluster of pink flames that returned to Xiaoyan's body. "You even body a little child." Jun-er helplessly shook her head and chided, "Ha ha." Xiaoyan laughed. He lifted his head to look at this realm, which was filled with flames. He said, "It is time to leave." "Aye." Jun-er slightly nodded. Their training had spent quite a bit of time. The clan was probably about to turn upside down. Jun-er. Xiaoyan suddenly lowered his head. His eyes were extremely gentle as they caressed the beauty in front of him. Jun-er's face immediately became flushed beneath his boiling hot eyes. She lowered her head and softly asked, "What is it?" "I will find a time to head to the Gu clan to propose marriage once we return." We will hold a big wedding after I rescue my father. What do you say? Shun-er's delicate figure trembled, her exquisite face revealed her embarrassment, but her eyes were filled with excitement and happiness. She had waited many years for this day and this sentence. Fortunately, her heart was still leaping like a little deer from how excited and anxious she was after hearing it now. Yes. Xiao Yan involuntarily laughed out loud as he looked at the beautiful figure, nodding her head with a flushed face. With his current strength, he could head anywhere he wanted in the world. He need not even fear an ancient clan with a long inheritance like the Gu clan, because that trash from the Xiao clan had become a peak existence of this world. Let's go. Xiao Yan extended his hand and wrapped around Shun-er's soft, delicate, seemingly boneless waist, pulling her into his embrace. His other hand ripped through the space in front of him as a pink flame surfaced on his finger. He pointed his finger, and this space, which had caused many five-star Dao Sheng to feel helpless, was forcefully split, forming an enormous crack line. Xiao Yan hugged Shun-er closer and stepped into it without hesitating. His body swayed and he disappeared along with that spatial crack. This demonic flame realm finally became completely silent after Xiao Yan and Shun-er left. This realm would also never appear again in the future. It would gradually be forgotten in the long river of time. The demonic flame plains was a lush green mountain range 2 years ago, but it had turned into white plains 2 years ago. Many 10,000-foot long cracks spread across the plains like enormous centipedes. Waves of great heat rose from the depths of these cracks, resulting in this region appearing unusually dry. These plains had been created after the purifying demonic lotus flame had descended 2 years ago. The many mountains in this region had turned into nothing in an instant, while the land had transformed into lava. However, when the demonic flame realm subsequently closed, the lava in this region had gradually solidified. Finally, the land turned into the plains that could be seen today. Based on common sense, the land where the demonic flame had raged would remain extremely desolated. But a group of adventuring mercenaries had discovered a mysterious crystal that was filled with wild and violent fire affinity energy in these plains, causing this land to become extremely lively. The individual crystals that were filled with a wild and violent fire affinity energy were called demonic flame rock, because these crystals seemed to possess an extremely faint trace of remains from the demonic flame. Although this lingering demonic flame had been diluted thousands of times over, it was still an absolute treasure for those who practiced fire affinity, Du Qi and alchemists, as long as one was able to absorb the energy within these demonic flame rock. One's Du Qi would not only become stronger, even the flame that an alchemist summoned would also grow more powerful than before. Hence, these plains had attracted many factions who had established territories and began to mine the demonic flame rocks 2 years ago. The Sky Mansion Alliance was naturally one of these factions. Moreover, the area they occupied was the spot within the plains packed with the richest veins of demonic flame rocks. With the strength of the current alliance, no one would dare to do anything foolish even if they felt jealous. Any place the Sky Mansion Alliance went meant that the Hall of Souls was close by. This had basically become common sense, known by everyone within the Central Plains. The two big factions had fought an unusually heated war during these 2 years. A fight would definitely break out when both parties met. Hence, soon after the alliance had spread to the demonic flame plains, the Hall of Souls had established a branch hall there as well. Some of those factions who were greedy for the demonic flame rocks but did not dare to oppose the Sky Mansion Alliance alone quietly joined the Hall of Souls. During this past year, the Hall of Souls had exchanged blows with the Alliance's troops stationed in this land time and time again. Although both parties had suffered losses and injuries, the demonic flame rocks that they had obtained also allowed them to taste the reason they stayed. Hence, the Hall of Souls and the Sky Mansion Alliance skirmished within the demonic flame plains every 3 days and fought a larger battle every 5 days, causing this region to appear extremely lively. Clang! 2 heavy swords surrounded by powerful Du Qi violently clashed against each other, forcing Parks to shoot away. One of the swords clearly appeared weaker than the other. The sword owner's body was forced back dozens of steps, his face paled and a mouthful of blood was spat out. But he did not bother about his injuries. His eyes swiftly swept around him and his eyes became bright red after seeing the seriously injured brothers. Tsk, tsk. Commander Liu, hand over the demonic flame rocks. We have been monitoring you for over half a month. That human figure, who had wounded the other man with his sword, stepped through the empty air and strangely laughed. He was wearing black robes. From the looks of the badge on his chest, it seemed like this person was someone from the Hall of Souls. "Commander, you should hurry and leave. Those demonic flame rocks are resources that our Zhuan unit dug up while risking our lives for a month in order to obtain. They must not land in the hands of these people from the Hall of Souls." A blood-covered man some distance away roared out. However, his roar had only just sounded when a long sword penetrated him from behind, preventing him from uttering those last few words. "A group of fools from the Sky Mansion Alliance dares to mine for the demonic flame rocks in the territory of my Hall of Souls. You are seeking death." A dark, cold laugh was emitted from around them. The rushing sound of wind appeared, and many black figures materialized in the sky above, surrounding those dozens of blood-covered individuals. The man called Commander Liu revealed a completely pale face upon seeing these figures. "The Sky Mansion Alliance does not possess any cowards. Commander, we will cover your escape. As long as you turn over these demonic flame rocks to the superiors, we will be able to become Inner Alliance disciples." Those dozens of human figures surrounding Commander Liu roared in low voices. They appeared just like ferocious wolves that had been forced into a corner as they prepared for an all-out fight. Hearing this, the hand holding Commander Liu's weapon trembled. He touched a bag near his chest. There were 10 storage rings there, each filled with demonic flame rocks. This was what their section had obtained after searching for months and risking their lives. If they were able to successfully bring them back to the Alliance, everyone in their section would be raised to an Inner Alliance disciple. At that time, their positions would be completely different. However, their current state had caused everyone's excited moods to turn icy cold. They would definitely have to pay an extremely terrible price if they wished to break free of this encirclement with their strength. "Brothers, we have all survived many battles all the way here. There are good days waiting for us after this. Therefore, pick up your weapons and charge with me." Commander Liu swung his heavy sword and cried out with a ferocious voice, after which he took the lead to charge forward. "Charge!" Those dozens of individuals began to pant heavily after hearing this command, after which their eyes reddened as they charged toward the encirclement. "Kill all of them, hang up their heads and deliver them to the Sky Mansion Alliance." A shady-looking elder indifferently glanced at these stubbornly resisting individuals from the air while he spoke in a faint voice. "Understood." A man behind the elder revealed a sinister expression as he respectfully replied. He was about to take a step forward when he discovered that his body had suddenly stilled. This man reacted quickly. He hurriedly turned his head to look at the old man with the highest status. But all he saw was that indifferent-looking elder's head fly off without a reason. Blood shot into the sky like a pillar, hanging heads and delivering them to the Sky Mansion. The current Hall of Souls appears quite bold. The space behind the headless old man slowly fluctuated under the shocked eyes of the man. A man and a woman slowly appeared. Protector Mo? This sudden, unexpected occurrence had caused everyone to halt. Those figures of the Hall of Souls contained a dense fear as they looked at the headless corpse. Fresh blood shot out of it, while a bloody head fell from the sky and rolled a couple of times on the ground. The expression on the head still retained the dark expression from before his death. This caused many to tremble, despite not feeling cold. Who are you?" "This is the territory of the Hall of Souls." That frozen man, whose position seemed to be much higher than the others, glanced at the 2 figures that had appeared in the air with a frightened expression. He suddenly cried out sternly a moment later. It seemed like he was planning to use this method to swallow the fear within his heart. The limbs of the Hall of Souls have actually extended this far. The man's and woman's figures gradually solidified in the sky. Surprisingly, they were Xiaoyan and Jun who had broken out of the demonic flame realm. Xiaoyan's eyes glanced at the dozens of black-clothed individuals from the Hall of Souls. A chill was surging within his dark, black eyes. The chill that surged within Xiaoyan's eyes caused the man's limbs to turn icy. Even the Do Qi within his body seemed to have solidified at this moment. The other party was able to randomly kill Protector Mo, a 5-star Do Zong. It was likely extremely easy for him to deal with the rest of them. He is too strong. Withdraw. The man acted decisively after this thought flashed through his heart. He did not utter anything unnecessary as his body pulled back. He only cried out loud after withdrawing 100 steps. The remaining individuals revealed a different expression after seeing that man turn around and flee. They ignored Commander Liu's group as they turned around and fled like mice. Commander Li quickly sighed in relief after seeing them run. The feeling of surviving a calamity caused the members of his group to feel as though they were about to collapse from exhaustion. How can it be so easy to leave after you have killed so many people? It is not easy to kill someone from the Sky Mansion. Xiao Yan's eyes glanced over those black figures fleeing in random directions with indifferent eyes. He gently pressed his foot against the air beneath him before an invisible ripple spread with lightning-like speed. Puff, puff. After this invisible ripple spread, those dozens of fleeing individuals suddenly stilled, after which their heads flew toward the sky, a pillar of blood accompanying them. Finally, they landed on the ground with throbs. Fresh blood dyed the ground until it appeared extremely bloody. A chill rose into the hearts of Commander Liu's group upon seeing this act. They were unable to see just how Xiao Yan had attacked. Those experts from the Hall of Souls, whose strengths had far surpassed theirs, had all become headless corpses. Elder, thank you for rescuing us. We are from the third large unit of the Outer Alliance of the Sky Mansion Alliance, the Zhuan unit. We will not forget the favor you have done us by rescuing our lives. Commander Liu was an intelligent person. He swiftly suppressed the fear within his heart and respectfully bowed to the two individuals in the air. Although these two appeared extremely young, this was a world where the strong were honored. The ability to kill an elite Dozong with ease was enough to address him as an elder. Outer Alliance. Xiao Yan felt a little surprised after hearing this person's words. It seemed that the Sky Mansion Alliance had significantly developed during these years. Distribute these medicinal pills. Those who still have a breath left will likely not die. Xiao Yan flicked his finger. A jade bottle landed in the hands of Commander Liu. Commander Liu grabbed it, and his eyes immediately widened. The medicinal pills within the jade bottle were all filled with a dense spirituality. The medicinal fragrance that trickled out of them was something that even the highest tier pill they had come across, a tier 6 medicinal pill, could not compare with. I wonder about the background of this elder. He is actually so generous. Even if all of us were to sell ourselves, our worth would not even compare to one of these medicinal pills. Commander Liu trembled as he held this jade bottle. He hurriedly took out the medicinal pills and distributed them to his seriously injured brothers, after which he led a couple of core members from the unit to the man and woman who had landed from the air in a frightened manner. Tell me about what has happened ever since the demonic flame realm had shut back then. Xiao Yan randomly gave an order after landing. Understood, Commander Liu respectfully replied after hearing this command. He was an intelligent person and knew what he should or should not ask. Hence, after arranging his thoughts, he summarized the big events that he knew had occurred within the Central Plains during the last 2 years. The few of them continued to secretly observe the young man in front of them as they spoke. They vaguely felt as though this person appeared a little familiar for some unknown reason. The Shi clan has vanished. Xiao Yan nodded as he heard about the various events that had occurred across the Central Plains during the last 2 years. Both Xiao Yan's and Jun Er's expression drastically changed after Commander Liu mentioned that the Shi clan had mysteriously vanished. That's right. The way the Shi clan disappeared is the same way the Ling clan did. However, such an occurrence has not happened since this occurred 1 year ago. It might be due to the 3 ancient clans forming an alliance, Commander Liu explained. How unexpected. There have been so many changes during these 2 years. Xiao Yan's expression was grave as he softly muttered to himself. Within 2 short years, the Sky Mansion and the Hall of Souls had begun an all-out war. The Shi clan had vanished, and the 3 clans had formed an alliance. These earth-shaking events had all gathered together. It was really an extraordinary lively period in time. This elder, Commander Liu's eyes swept around him after Xiao Yan started to ponder the news he had obtained. Commander Liu hesitated for a moment before carefully opening his mouth to say, "There is a branch hall of the Hall of Souls a short distance from here. It is possible for them to detect the death of a protector. Hence, we should hurry up and leave. The Hall of Souls branch hall within the demonic flame plains is very strong. There is even an elite Du Sheng from the Hun clan guarding it. Many of the experts from our Sky Mansion Alliance have died to the hands of that Du Sheng during this 2-year war." "Oh? How many stars is this Du Sheng?" Xiao Yan lifted his brows and asked upon hearing this information. 1 star. Although Commander Liu did not understand why Xiao Yan had asked this question, he gave an honest reply. An expert of that level merely existed in legends to them. 1 star. Huh. Xiao Yan fondled his chin and slightly nodded. Commander Liu and the others felt a slight joy upon seeing him nod. They thought that had convinced this elder to leave when they were stunned by his next words. You know where it is, right? Bring me to that branch hall. Everyone became quiet as they looked at the smiling young man in front of them. Commander Liu's lips began to tremble. This Hall of Souls branch hall had been viewed by them as a frightening forbidden ground. Everyone normally kept themselves far from that region. Who had ever thought of going to it? Let's go. Xiao Yan merely smiled as they remained silent. He placed his hand on Commander Liu's shoulder. Before Commander Liu could speak, space fluctuated and the 3 of them disappeared. The other members of the unit displayed pale faces once those 3 disappeared. Heading to the Hall of Souls branch hall was seeking death. It is over this time around. A member of the unit revealed a depressed expression. They had managed to retain their lives after much difficulty. Yet they were going to deliver themselves to death now. What should we do? Don't panic. That elder does not appear to be an ordinary person. There is an elite Do Sheng present in that branch hall. Regardless of how strong that elder is, he is still very young. How can he be a match for that old demon? But this large group of people faced each other. They finally became dispirited after a discussion. Chi! Space itself once again fluctuated while everyone was quiet. 3 figures quickly appeared. It was Xiao Yan and the other 2, who had only been gone for less than 10 minutes. Commander. Everyone rejoiced after verifying that the 3 of them were alive. They hurriedly swarmed forward. However, Commander Liu merely looked around with a dull expression as everyone swarmed over. No one who had witnessed a legendary old demon Do Sheng randomly turn into mincemeat by a random strike from this young man would be able to remain calm. Commander, is the old demon absent from the branch hall? Commander Liu finally recovered after hearing the slight sounds around him. He shook his head as he suddenly said, in the future, the Hall of Souls branch hall will cease to exist within the demonic flame planes. The renowned Saint Hun Qing will also disappear. Everyone was startled upon hearing this news before they suddenly recovered. Soon after, disbelief appeared in their eyes. A branch hall belonging to the Hall of Souls had actually ceased to exist within a short couple of minutes. Let's go. Xiao Yan smiled after seeing the comical expressions on these people's faces. He turned around, stepped through empty space, and slowly headed into the distance. Go and find the person in charge of this region once you return. In the future, you will all be Dai-class members of the Inner Sky Mansion Alliance. Everyone present trembled slightly after hearing the faint voice that spread. The members of the Inner Sky Mansion Alliance were divided into Tian, Di, Zhuan, and Huang. Even though their contributions this time around would be quite great, they would at the very most become Inner Alliance Huang members. There was a great distance to reach the D class. How could one sentence from this person? Elder, may we know your name? Commander Liu was startled. He suddenly knelt down and cried out in a respectful voice, "Tell them that Xiao Yan has asked all of you to find him." A soft laugh was transmitted along with the wind before a voice slowly echoed by everyone's ears. Xiao Yan. Everyone suddenly lifted their heads. Their eyes were shocked as they stared at the blurry figure who was stepping through the air until the figure vanished. It was a long while later before a voice, which was trembling due to excitement, appeared. He is actually the Junior Alliance Chief, Xiao Yan Ge. The Gu clan has definitely suffered a blow because of the disappearance of the Shu clan. I might have to return and take a look. Xiao Yan looked to the north, western sky from the top of a green mountain. Shun Er's soft, lovely voice tickled his ear. He felt a little emotional. He naturally understood that Shun Er's 2-year disappearance would have caused a great commotion within the Gu clan, so she ought to make a trip back now that she had escaped. Plus, there was the news of the Shu clan. Shun Er, I have promised that I will go to the Gu clan to propose marriage. Wait for me. Xiao Yan's hand gently reached into the air in front of him as he clenched, as though he wanted to grab the figure that had disappeared into the distance. He swiftly withdrew his emotions a moment later before his eyes gradually narrowed. He had managed to grasp an understanding of the present situation between the Sky Mansion Alliance and the Hall of Souls during his journey. The fiery hot fights between both parties had far exceeded his expectations. Currently, neither party would rest until the other had perished. The Hall of Souls had destroyed quite a number of Sky Mansion Alliance cities, while the Alliance had destroyed some branch halls. The true upper echelons had managed to hold back. But both parties could still be described as having killed until they were crazy. Of course, Xiao Yan would naturally not object to this situation. The Hall of Souls was a deadly enemy to him, and it was impossible for them to reconcile. He had once thought about the possibility of the current situation, but he had not expected it to arrive so swift and fierce. Deaths and injuries are inevitable when two tigers fight. The Hall of Souls has suffered a great loss this time around. Given their attitudes, it is impossible for them to simply swallow such a loss. But the current alliance not only has ancestor Xiao Chen, it is also secretly protected by the ancestor of the Pill Tower. Regardless of how domineering the chief of the Hall of Souls is, he would not dare to charge into the alliance. Though there is still the Hun clan behind the Hall of Souls. With the Hall of Souls being the claws of the Hun clan, the clan likely does not wish to see the hall be destroyed by the hands of the Sky Mansion Alliance. Xiao Yan's eyes flickered. Although he had only recently returned to this world, it was not difficult to make some guesses after gathering some information. Hall of Souls. Perhaps it is time to truly fight. Back then, you bathed my Xiao clan in blood and nearly ended my Xiao clan's bloodline. Now, it is time to repay blood with blood. Xiao Yan slowly clenched his fist. A flame was rising within his eyes, but a dark and icy feeling was suddenly exposed. His body moved, and his spatial fluctuation vanished in a strange fashion, being the headquarters of the Sky Mansion Alliance. The current Falling Star Pavilion had not only expanded many times, there was also an uncountable number of experts within the headquarters. Its defense appeared impenetrable. Even an elite Du Sheng-class individual would have difficulty sneaking in without anyone noticing. As the Sky Mansion Alliance swiftly grew, some of the voices coming from the various factions that had opposed the alliance completely vanished. Additionally, the few larger factions had begun to show signs of merging as various standards were imposed on the alliance. Some disciples had even begun to change the way they addressed themselves. They no longer referred to themselves as members of their own respective sects. Instead, they referred to themselves as members of the Sky Mansion. Through this prolonged integration, these various factions were gradually merging into a single faction. The Sky Mansion, the leaders of the few large factions, clearly noticed these changes, but they ended up giving their silent approval since the Alliance and the Hall of Souls were irreconcilable enemies. If any changes within the Alliance caused it to split, these separate entities would definitely become the target of the Hall of Souls' vengeance. At that time, they would likely meet a miserable fate. They only had the ability to fight the Hall of Souls by remaining together. Otherwise, they would just end up dying. The Star Realm had undergone a drastic change compared to 2 years ago. On the many mountains that rose from the ground stood numerous huge buildings. Some powerful auras were vaguely seeping out of these buildings. This area could be considered the core region of the Sky Mansion Alliance within the Star Realm. The number of strong individuals present had reached a terrifying figure. There was an exceptionally majestic hall standing at the top of a mountain in the middle of the Star Realm. Clouds lingered above it, giving it a vast and mighty aura. Many spiritual perceptions continued to sweep around the hall like a dragnet. It was possible to detect even an ant that had barged in with these defenses. The Alliance has exchanged blows with the Hall of Souls a total of 43 times during this month. 3 of them have been large-scale interactions. Although we have destroyed a branch hall, we have also lost quite a number of people. The atmosphere in the hall was solemn as Feng Zun. She read a report regarding last month's battles to Yao Lao, who sat in the leader's seat. Yao Lao slowly nodded upon hearing this information. Although his aura had become stronger compared to 2 years ago, his face appeared slightly older. It seemed that the matters of the Alliance had exhausted a great amount of his vitality. These are not big matters. But recently, we have gained some information that the Hall of Souls is growing impatient because of this stalemate. Feng Zun, she mused for a moment before speaking. Oh? Many of the Alliance's upper echelons immediately shot their eyes over after hearing his words. According to our intelligence, The Hun clan will dispatch a genuine expert to aid the Hall of Souls in eliminating our Sky Mansion alliance. Humph. They are really arrogant. The Hall of Souls actually dares to utter such bold words with Elder Xiao Chen and the ancestor from the Pill Tower around. Some low snorts could be heard around the hall after Feng Zunji's voice had reached everyone. The powerful strength that the Sky Mansion Alliance had displayed during these years was extremely impressive. Faced with such strength, even the Hall of Souls had ended up suffering great losses. Some busybodies had even described the Sky Mansion Alliance as the newly born overlord of the Central Plains, unavoidably causing some to become prideful. It is good to be confident. However, it will be no different from seeking death if one is overconfident. Yao Lao glanced at the few who had spoken and commented on the situation in a faint voice. Have we find out who the Hun clan will dispatch? Feng Zunji licked his lips. He looked at Yao also and nodded. He said, Hun Mo Qian. He glanced about the hall as he uttered these words, only to discover that many were a little lost. He could only add, a 6-star Du Sheng. It is rumored that he had once participated in the killing of Xiao Xuan. Bang! The final sentence was like a heavy bomb that caused the hall to tremble. Shock appeared on many faces. The Hun clan was actually dispatching an old demon of this level. It seemed like they had made up their minds to destroy the Sky Mansion Alliance. Hun Qianbai. A hoarse voice suddenly sounded within the shocked hall. Almost everyone became quiet the moment this voice sounded. Many pairs of eyes shifted to a corner of the hall. A skinny figure was quietly sitting at that spot. His expression was as dull as a zombie. This skinny figure was Xiao Chen. The Zhao clan ancestor Xiao Yan had rescued from the demonic flame illusion back then. Xiao Chen merely sounded out this name with his mouth, after which he returned to being quiet. Only an extremely strong individual could sense that the space around him was vaguely showing signs collapsing, like his heart was experiencing an intense emotional fluctuation. Why would the Hun clan dispatch such an old demon? Aren't they afraid of displeasing the Gu clan and the other 3 clans? Ancestor Huoyun frowned and asked. A 6-star Do Sheng, even though he had fully recovered from his injuries and bad broken through to the 2nd star of the Do Sheng class with the help of some medicinal pills. He still felt a helpless pressure when faced with this level. Currently, these ancient clans are all suspicious of each other. They are afraid that the incident of the Ling clan and the Shu clan will repeat itself. Who has the spare time to worry about the Hun clan? Moreover, the Hun clan seems to be testing the waters. Otherwise, the one who would be coming would not be Hun Qian Mo. The first elder of the Pill Tower shook his head. His expression was grave as he said, if this old demon really intends to intervene, it is likely that we can only invite Ancestor to fight. However, if this is the case, the Hall of Souls will only need to send out the Hall of Souls chief or Old Man Hun Mo to temporarily hold back Elder Xiao Chen. If this is the case, our greatest strengths will be completely restrained. The last remaining person can lead the experts from the Hall of Souls and attack our alliance. We will likely end up in a miserable battle when that time comes. The hall became quiet after hearing the Pill Tower's first Elder's analysis. Although the Sky Mansion Alliance had rapidly developed, they were barely able to fight against the Hall of Souls peak-level experts. However, this equilibrium had been shattered by the Hun clan's grand action. At that time, the little fairy doctor, Qing Lin, and I will join hands and see if we can hold back the chief of the Hall of Souls. Yao Lao revealed an expression of contemplation before speaking a moment later. The first elder of the Pill Tower helplessly shook his head after hearing this reply. Forget about seeing if the 3 of them were able to hold back the 5-star Do Sheng chief of the Hall of Souls. Even if they could barely do so, the hall's elite Do Shengs would remain unopposed. Only a Do Sheng could hold back a Do Sheng. If the Hall of Souls elite Do Shengs were allowed to charge in, they would give the Alliance's remaining forces a destructive blow. We would not face this headache if Miss Ziyan was around. A person softly sighed. Ziyan was an extremely helpful, but the ancient Void Dragon's problems hadn't been resolved yet. The 3 great dragon kings had escaped after being wounded. Although they were no longer as strong as before, they were still a threat. She had to remain on the Eastern Dragon Island until the 3 islands were completely eliminated. The large hall returned to a depressing silence. Only at this moment did everyone realize that a great storm had been gradually forming above the Alliance. If they were unable to endure this storm, all of their past efforts would be for naught. if it is the chief of the Hall of Souls. The first elder of the Pill Tower hesitated for a moment before he finally clenched his teeth and stood up. Before his words could be uttered, a clear laugh that caused the hearts of everyone present to quiver interrupted him. "Leave him to me." Xiao Chen suddenly widened his eyes from the corner of the hall. His emotionless face slowly revealed a pleased smile. The sudden laughter caused the interior of the hall to become dull. An instant later, all the gazes within the large hall suddenly shifted to the entryway. Sunlight scattered down from the sky at that spot as a skinny figure slowly appeared in everyone's eyes. Xiao Yan, Feng Zun, Zhe, Ancestor Huo Yun, and the others within the large hall trembled the moment that figure appeared. Their faces were filled with disbelief. A startled cry was involuntarily emitted from their mouths. Xiao Yan? He is the direct disciple of the Alliance Chief. Due to the growth of the Sky Mansion, some upper echelons currently seated within this hall possessed a blurry impression of Xiao Yan's face. Although his appearance was indistinct, they were all clearly aware of just what kind of a position Xiao Yan held within the Sky Mansion. If Yao Lao was described as the chief of the Sky Mansion Alliance, Xiao Yan was the spiritual leader of the Sky Mansion. Bang! Yao Lao's mouth slightly opened. His eyes stared intently at the figure that was slowly walking in. The vast and mighty Do Qi within his body erupted due to the fluctuation in his heart, rendering the chair he was seated on into dust. However, he completely ignored this. He trembled as he stood up, while his eyes actually became a little moist. He had constantly worried about Xiao Yan for these past 2 years. He had never had a wife nor a child in his life. Xiao Yan was the person closest to him. If he had known that leaving the demonic flame realm back then would have forced him to tolerate this weight that pained his heart, he would not even hesitate to remain behind. The other upper echelons of the Sky Mansion felt somewhat startled in their hearts after seeing Yao Lao. Over the years, Yao Lao had only displayed an ancient well-like calmness, even while facing a giant being like the Hall of Souls. Yao Lao did not reveal the slightest emotional fluctuation. This emotional outburst was the first time they had not seen him calm after all these years. Xiao Yan's body swayed gently in front of the many pairs of eyes in the large hall, after which he appeared in front of Yao Lao. He looked at the old man, who was so excited that his tears were beginning to fall. An apology rose within Xiao Yan's heart. His 2-year absence had caused Yao Lao to worry. "Teacher, I am back." Some emotions surged within both of their hearts as the teacher and disciple met. Finally, a soft voice was emitted that caused one to feel extremely emotional. "Ha ha, it is good that you are back. It is good that you are back." Yao Lao wiped away his tears. That old face, which had been tense for the last 2 years, finally revealed a smile. His shriveled hand continued to pat Xiao Yan's shoulder while he repeated the same words over and over again. "Ha ha. Old Yao, I have said many times that this little fellow would not experience such a short life. Do you believe me now?" Ancestor Huo Yun laughed. He exhaled deeply after seeing that Xiao Yan had successfully returned. This little fellow seemed to possess a demonic strength that calmed one's heart. His heart, which had been suffering under the pressure of the Hall of Souls, immediately relaxed the moment he saw Xiao Yan. "Haha, Junior Alliance Chief is really timely. You are able to help relieve some of the pressure the Alliance is dealing with by coming out of your retreat. If the both of us join hands, we should be able to hold back the Chief of the Hall of Souls." The first elder from the small pill tower laughed out of joy. Given his current strength, it should not be a problem for him to deal with the Chief of the Hall of Souls alone. Xiao Chen, who was seated in a corner, faintly laughed faintly and made a statement after the first elder's words sounded. The first elder, Yao Lao, and the others were startled upon hearing these words. Their eyes scanned Xiao Yan with some shock. Xiao Chen was the strongest person present. Since he had uttered these words, no one here would doubt him. You have refined the purifying demonic lotus flame." Yao Lao was the fastest to react. He was startled for a moment before he involuntarily exclaimed, "By luck." Xiao Yan grinned. This little fellow." Ancestor Huo Yun and the rest inhaled a breath of cool air after hearing that Xiao Yan did not deny this claim. They exchanged glances with each other and were able to see the shock in each other's eyes. Most of them had entered the demonic flame realm and clearly understood just how frightening the purifying demonic lotus flame was. It was a frightening existence that even the ancestor of the Pill Tower was unable to gain the upper hand against. They had all thought that Xiaoyan had been extremely lucky to successfully escape from the demonic flame realm. Honestly speaking, none of them had even thought about the matter of subduing the purifying demonic lotus flame when Xiaoyan had appeared earlier. This was because the purifying demonic lotus flame was far too terrifying. There was no lack of experts far stronger than Xiaoyan who had attempted to subdue it over these thousands of years. However, all of them had returned in failure without exception. Good, haha, good. Yao Lao recovered after his initial shock. His old face was filled with joy that could not be hidden. In the eyes of many alchemists, a heavenly flame, like the purifying demonic lotus flame, was a divine object that they could not hope to reach. No one had subdued that flame since the purifying demonic lotus saint had subdued it back then. Yet Xiaoyan had created another miracle. With the purifying demonic lotus flame, Yao Lao did not doubt that Xiaoyan would be able to fight the chief of the Hall of Souls alone without being defeated. With the Junior Alliance chief's help, we should be able to deal with this attack from the Hall of Souls. This is really a joyous matter. The first elder laughed. It was extremely good that Xiaoyan would be able to deal with the chief of the Hall of Souls alone. In this way, he would be able to free the first elder's hands and greatly reduce the pressure the Alliance faced. Ha ha ha. Junior Alliance Chief is a blessing to the Alliance. The many members of the upper echelons within the hall hurriedly laughed and respectfully cried out. Although their words carried some weight within the Alliance, they clearly understood in their hearts that there was an unmeasurable gap between them and Xiaoyan's current status. The Sky Mansion Alliance was something that Xiaoyan had established. He had spent a lot of effort creating it. Although Yao Lao was the Alliance chief, some of the true core members, like Ancestor Huo Yun, understood that Yao Lao was merely helping Xiaoyan manage this incomparably large faction. The entire alliance actually belonged to one person, and that person was Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan did not show a cold and indifferent expression when he saw these somewhat foreign faces fill with warmth and respect. He smiled, chatted with everyone, causing many of the usually arrogant individuals to feel flattered. Ha ha ha. The matter today shall end here. Everyone, please return and organize yourselves. Observe every action of the Hall of Souls, since they are planning to engage in a decisive battle with us. We will use reality to show them that the current alliance is not the least bit afraid of the Hall of Souls. Understood. Everyone felt their blood boil within their hearts as Yao Lao passionately cried out about receiving this battle. There had been far too many conflicts between the two factions during the last 2 years. The differences between the two were growing, and they could no longer ruthlessly fight each other. This matched what many people were thinking in their hearts, since this decisive battle would truly determine the overlord of the Central Plains. This coming fight between an old faction, the Hall of Souls, and a newly risen alliance, the Sky Mansion Alliance, will send the Central Plains into an uproar. After the end of the meeting in the hall, Xiaoyan chatted with the excited Yao Lao about some of the big and small matters that had occurred within the Sky Mansion during these years. After that chat, he returned to his quiet courtyard, a place he had not been in for 2 years. "Daddy!" A familiar cry full of joy immediately sounded after Xiaoyan entered the courtyard. A smiling figure quickly shot toward him from afar, making an arc in the air. "Haha, this little girl has grown quite a lot." Xiaoyan smiled as he extended his hand and firmly embraced that delicate figure. Xiao quickly revealed her happy and tender face, causing his heart to involuntarily fill with a warmth. This was his home. Regardless of the danger he experienced, he would be able to swiftly expel the fatigue in his heart after coming home. "She has been waiting patiently after hearing that you had returned." A warm and gentle voice appeared in front of Xiaoyan while he was lovingly hugging Xiao. Xiaoyan lifted his head and saw the little fairy doctor wearing a formal robe. She was looking at him with a smile. She radiated more warmth than she had 2 years ago. The gentleness that she emanated seeped into one's heart, causing one to feel an addiction bloom. "You have become a Dosheng?" Xiaoyan continued to hug Xiao as looked at the little fairy doctor and asked with a smile. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to sense her 1-star Dosheng strength. She had already broken through that barrier within 2 years, leaping past the Ban Sheng class to reach the 1st star of the Dao Sheng class. This speed was quite impressive. It is all thanks to that drop of demonic saint essence blood. The little fairy doctor grinned. She caught sight of Xiaoyan's sweeping eyes and involuntarily laughed. Kai Lin has not come out ever since she entered that Nine Serene Spring back then. However, you need not be worried. Qing Lin and I head to the territory of the Nine Serene Deep Ground Python tribe every once in a while. She should have met a lucky encounter at the bottom of the spring. We can sense her aura, but we are unable to enter the bottom of the spring. Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily changed upon hearing this news. If one counted the time, did it not mean that Kai Lin had stayed at the bottom of the spring for almost 3 years? He had also been near the bottom of the spring, but he had not sensed anything amiss. Could she be in the even deeper region? Xiao Yan frowned. The Nine Serene Spring was connected to the depths of the earth. The dark and cold force at those depths were places that caused even him to be afraid. If she really experienced a lucky encounter, he could only think of that region. As a 7-colored heaven-swallowing python, remaining in contact with that extremely dark energy might indeed be a lucky encounter. Looks like I will need to hurry to the Nine Serene Deep Ground Python tribe after resolving the matters of the alliance. Xiao Yan shook his head. He temporarily suppressed the worry in his heart. Currently, the most important thing was to resolve the Hall of Soul's trouble.